Hey guys, it's Godbars here, the self-proclaimed hip-hop historian, and this is the 207th episode of my series where I grab a vinyl from my collection, talk about why I love it, what influence it has, and what its place is in the grand scheme of hip-hop. So today we're discussing someone who truly had hip-hop coursing through every fiber of their being, the late great Eyedea, who may have been my earliest introduction to underground hip-hop as a friend of mine introduced me to the song E and A Day off of the second album Idea did with DJ Abilities back in 6th or 7th grade. Getting his start as a breakdancer when he was pretty young, Idea pivoted to being an MC first and foremost after he started to develop arthritis in his teenage years and started to struggle to perform the physically demanding dance moves he was doing before. This proved to be a pretty beneficial career move, as anyone familiar with this dude's work would likely agree that he's one of, if not the single best freestyle battle rapper to ever do it. I'm actually a pretty big fan of modern battle rap, and have kept a somewhat wandering eye on that side of the culture ever since that modern URL kind of post-grind time era, when the scene first started really bubbling over in the early 2010s. I've actually been putting off finishing a video I have planned for my top 50 favorite battle rappers, which is still in the writing stage, but I would love to know how many watchers of the channel also enjoy battle rap, and leave a comment down below about whether you'd like to see content about that side of the genre. I might as well just share a small handful of names from some of my favorites in battle rap. Again, at least when it comes to the last decade or so, which for me includes guys like QP or Quantum Physics, who's been my longtime favorite battle rapper, not to be confused with QP Clean Paper, who I believe now goes by Kitchen Clean, who's definitely a legend in his own right. He just didn't make this top tier for me personally. However, some of the other names who do make that list are guys like Daylight, Jay the Nightwing, New Jersey Twerk, Loaded Lux, Bill Collector, Emerson Kennedy, and of course, the most electrified O Solo. Of course, the actual off-the-top freestyle element isn't as big a part of battle rap as it used to be, and we only really hear it nowadays in the occasional off-the-cuff rebuttal. But it was this off-the-dome style of battling that birthed competitions like Scribble Jam, which Idea won more than once, and that's no small feat. These were the days where the rules were absolutely ruthless and brutal, because if you had the slightest hiccup or stumble, that was it. Your round was automatically over and the mic would be forfeited to your competitor. And you couldn't hinge your bets by showing up with pre-written material that you'd practiced beforehand, because the second the crowd would catch a whiff of bars that weren't coming off the top of your head right there and then, you would get booed. And as if all of that wasn't enough, you could avoid all those pitfalls and rap an off-the-cuff verse that was completely improvised, rhymed the whole way through, and had no semblance of choking or messing up, and you may still get booed off stage because the content you rapped wasn't directed and geared toward your opponent enough. I say all this to make it readily apparent how Idea was really one of the best. And in terms of freestyle rapping off the top of his head, he was really just cut from a different cloth. And if you need an example of that past all of the endless battle footage he has out there, you should check out the old Sway in the Morning freestyle that he did with Slug of Atmosphere, who kind of helped give him a big break by taking him on tour with them when he was just 17. And I'll leave a link in the description down below for that Sway in the Morning video because it's one of my all-time favorite freestyles. Slug and Idea actually had a lot in common and were both insanely important to Minnesota hip-hop, but there's one song on this LP titled Red, Wiped, and Blue that sort of reminds me of the Atmosphere song Nothing But Sunshine off of the Lucy Ford EP, where both artists share their equally tragic backstories full of loss and abuse. Idea unfortunately committed suicide in 2010, but while it was a massive loss for his friends, family, and the hip-hop community at large, he left a footprint so large and deep in the soil of the culture, he really runs no risk of being forgotten. However, if there's one thing he left behind that doesn't get quite as much attention as his battling career, but should in my opinion, is the actual full-length albums he dropped throughout his lifetime, and my personal favorite would have to be his 2001 debut LP with abilities called Firstborn. The concepts and ideas, no pun intended, that get tackled on here are insanely creative, dense, and overall else, they're ridiculously well written and thought out. This was an album I never really got recommended online or heard about through some legendary status as a classic. This was just an LP I gave a chance a few years back when I realized I hadn't ever given an Eyedea project a full listen front to back. Needless to say, I was completely blown away, so much so that I ended up listening to all 3 albums he did with DJ Abilities that day, and it's a great example of the shining musical gems you're able to uncover when you just bite that bullet and give a new experience a chance. One of my favorite moments on Firstborn comes on the genius song Birth of a Fish, where Eyedea basically has a full argument with a fish in its tank as they debate which one of them truly has it better off or worse off, and whether or not humans exist in our own kind of proverbial fish tank. It's one of the many endlessly interesting concepts on this debut, and some of my favorite lines come when he raps, "He lives in a 4x2 glass box that reminds me of my head. I wish my floor would have rocks, but it's covered with puddles instead. If I could be him, life would be great. I could erase this permanent frown. I wouldn't even be held down by my own weight. I woke up, walked to the tank to hear his thoughts on yesterday. How was it? I asked, and after a tap on the glass, he looked my way, then gave me this depressed expression and pressed his best just to say, besides the tides and the gray skies, it was okay. And I said, hey, Mr. Fish, you did all that you wish. You got nothing to complain about while hanging out in this abyss." And he replied, well, existence is bliss. There's so much that you missed. Besides, get off the trip. Happiness is just a myth. I said, living in water is extremely more peaceful than life, confined to a mind blinded by evil and forced to see through these 2 peepholes. It seems I've redeemed freedom, not being limited by walls, but that only means I qualify as ground for the sky when it falls. There's a virtually never-ending pool of thought-provoking moments on Firstborn, and with 0 features to be named outside of Blueprint on the bonus track, Eyedea proved that he had more than enough skill and talent to hold your attention across an entire full-length LP himself. You can't give him 100% of the credit, though, as a big part of what made this album click for me is the stellar production completely handled by DJ Abilities, who displays his godlike skills for not just cutting and scratching, but having a keen ear for dark and atmospheric sample flips. While they probably would have made my list of top songs, I decided to leave out the couple of tracks I already discussed by name so I can make room for honorable mentions like Music, Powdered Water 2, 1, Color My World Mine, A Murder of Memories, Blindly Firing, Big Shots, Void, Internal Theory, and The Dive 2. Then for that final top 3, I narrowed it down to The Dive 1, Void, External Theory, and On This I Stand. Thank you for watching my 207th video. Next up, we have what's most likely the highest selling and most popular album in this set of 2000s classics. So look for that one, and if you enjoyed, be sure to like, subscribe, and let me know what your favorite songs are off this kind of underappreciated yet dope LP. Don't forget to have a great day, and I'll see you next time, okay? Alright.
Look, the key to my soul is locked in the cage it opens. The framework was made from my own rib cue. What came first, the crack or the crack light, or whichever one the first fiend used to bring back